Welcome to Inorganic Chemistry. Today, we are going to explore bond length and angle trends. Imagine you and a friend are holding hands in an open field. The distance between you is like a bond length. Now imagine a group around a campfire, spacing out to stay warm without bumping elbows. That spacing creates bond angles. Understanding these two simple ideas is the key to unlocking the three-dimensional shapes of all molecules. Now that we have our campfire analogy, let us look at how bond length actually works. Formally, bond length is the straight line distance from the exact center of one atom's nucleus to the center of the atom it is attached to. What controls this distance? The most obvious factor is the physical size of the atom itself, known as the atomic radius. Larger atoms have outer shells further from their centers, creating longer bonds. Another major factor is bond order. A single bond is like one rubber band, but a triple bond acts like three strong rubber bands, pulling the atoms tightly together and shortening the distance. This brings us to our first mathematical tool. If we want to predict the distance between two atoms, we can start with a very simple addition. The formula is D equals R1 plus R2. Here, D represents the predicted bond length. The symbol R1 stands for the covalent radius of the first atom, and R2 is the covalent radius of the second atom. Conceptually, this just means if you add the physical sizes of the two atoms together, you get the approximate distance between their centers. If either atom gets larger, the total bond length increases proportionally. That simple addition formula we just saw is great, but it only works perfectly when two atoms share their electrons equally. What happens when they do not? We must introduce electronegativity. Think of it like a greedy person pulling a shared blanket to their side of the bed. When atoms have different electronegativities, the bond becomes polar. The electron cloud is pulled closer to the greedier atom. This unequal sharing creates a strong electrostatic attraction that actually pulls the two nuclei slightly closer together than we would expect based purely on their sizes. The bond shrinks. To account for this shrinking effect in polar bonds, scientists use the Shoemaker-Stephenson equation. Conceptually, it takes a simple addition and subtracts a correction factor based on how unequal the sharing is. Let us look at the symbols. The letter C is a constant, usually given a value of 0.09. The Greek letters chi1 and chi2 represent the electronegativities of the two atoms. The vertical bars mean we take the absolute value of their difference. As the difference in electronegativity increases, the subtracted term gets larger. Physically, this means the more polar the bond, the shorter the bond length becomes. Before we move on, let us see this with a concrete example. We need to calculate the theoretical bond length of a hydrogen chloride molecule. We are given the radius of hydrogen as 0.37 angstroms and chlorine as 0.99 angstroms. Their electronegativities are 2.1 and 3.16 respectively. Because these values are very different, the bond is highly polar, so we must choose the Shoemaker-Stephenson equation. Simple addition would give an inaccurate, overly long result. We substitute our given numbers into the equation, replacing the constant C with 0.09. Continuing with our calculation, we first add the two atomic radii together, which gives us 1.36. Next, we find the difference inside the absolute value bars, which becomes a positive 1.06. We then multiply this difference by our constant 0.09, giving 0.0954. This specific number is exactly how much the bond shrinks due to unequal sharing. Finally, we subtract this correction factor from our initial sum. The final calculated distance is 1.2646 angstroms. This perfectly matches experimental measurements, proving the bond is shorter than expected from size alone. Moving on from lengths, let us talk about angles. Bond angles are primarily determined by the repulsion between pairs of electrons in the outermost shell of the central atom. This is the core of VSEPR theory, which stands for valence shell electron pair repulsion. Because electron pairs are negatively charged, they hate being near each other and push apart as far as physically possible. However, not all pairs push with the same force. A lone pair, which is not shared with another atom, takes up more space. It acts like an invisible bully, pushing harder and squishing the other bonded atoms closer together, reducing the bond angle. To predict exact angles, we must combine VSEPR theory with orbital hybridization and Bendt's rule. Hybridization is like mixing red and white paint to get identical pink paint. Atoms mix their native orbitals to create new hybrid orbitals for bonding. The S character is simply the percentage of the spherical S orbital in that mix. Orbitals with less S character are longer and reach further away from the nucleus. According to Bendt's rule, highly electronegative atoms prefer to occupy these positions with less S character. This perfectly suits their greedy nature, as they want to pull electrons further away from the central atom. Let us look at the mathematical notation for this mixing. For a molecule like phosphorus trichloride difluoride, the central phosphorus atom has 5 valence electrons and forms 5 single bonds. This means it needs 5 hybrid orbitals. It achieves this by mixing 1 s orbital, 3 p orbitals and 1 d orbital, giving us the hybridization formula sp3d. Conceptually, this specific combination of 5 orbitals naturally arranges itself into a trigonal bipyramidal geometry. This shape keeps the 5 electron pairs as far apart as possible, looking exactly like 2 pyramids glued together at their bases. Now that we have our hybridization formula, let us solve for the exact structure of phosphorus trichloride difluoride. We are asked to determine exactly where the 3 chlorine atoms and 2 fluorine atoms will go. We know the sp3d hybridization creates a trigonal bipyramidal shape. This shape has 2 distinct types of positions. The equatorial spots form a belt around the middle and have more S character. The axial spots point straight up and down like the north and south poles and are formed mostly from p and d orbitals, meaning they have very little S character. Let us look at exactly what this geometry looks like. In this diagram, the central orange phosphorus atom is surrounded by 5 bonds. Notice the 2 distinct regions. The 3 green chlorine atoms form a flat triangle around the middle. These are the equatorial positions. The 2 yellow fluorine atoms sit at the very top and bottom. These are the axial positions. You can clearly see the angles formed between these atoms. This visual representation is crucial for understanding how Bendt's rule dictates the final architecture of the molecule, which we will calculate next. Continuing with our structural prediction, we must decide where each atom goes. We know fluorine is much more electronegative than chlorine. Applying Bendt's rule, the highly electronegative fluorine atoms are forced into the axial spots because those positions have less S character, perfectly suiting their greedy nature. Consequently, the less electronegative chlorine atoms take the 3 equatorial spots. Because these equatorial positions have more S character, the electrons are held closer to the nucleus. And the chlorine atoms are perfectly happy sharing this space, spreading out evenly in a flat triangle. To finalize our example, we determine the exact bond angles based on these positions. The 3 chlorine atoms in the equatorial belt divide a full circle evenly, giving an angle of 120 degrees between them. The 2 fluorine atoms are on exact opposite sides of the central phosphorus atom, forming a perfect straight line. This gives an axial angle of 180 degrees. Physically, this means the molecule has successfully minimized electron repulsion while satisfying the electronegativity demands of every atom involved. Now that we have calculated these trends, why do they matter? Understanding bond lengths and angles is incredibly important in the real world, especially in fields like drug design and material science. These exact measurements determine the overall three-dimensional shape of a molecule. If a drug molecule has the wrong bond angle by even a few degrees, it might not fit into a virus's protein receptor, rendering the medicine completely useless. Furthermore, bond angles dictate whether a molecule is polar, which controls its boiling point. For example, water's specific bent angle is the only reason it is a liquid at room temperature and can support life on Earth. We have covered a lot of ground today. Let us review the most important ideas. First, bond length tells us how tightly two atoms are held together, and we learned how the Shoemaker-Stevenson equation corrects this distance for polar bonds. Second, bond angles reveal the three-dimensional shape of the molecule, driven by electron pairs pushing away from each other. Finally, we saw how Bent's rule helps us predict exactly where highly electronegative atoms will position themselves. By mastering these delicate balancing acts between atomic size, bond strength, and electron repulsion, you can now predict the physical architecture of any molecule. Great job!